Hey everyone, it's Molly. Today we're making an old-fashioned pie. Specifically, we're making apple fluff pie. Now, I will put the recipe for you down below in the description box so you'll have that, and let's get started. Okay, so the first thing you need is a pie tin with some pie dough in it unbaked. So I already have one waiting in the freezer. I like to keep those in the freezer. I find I get a better texture crust when I put it in the oven fully frozen. So mine's waiting for me. My oven is preheated to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. And so this recipe is interesting. It's kind of like a pie from your pantry because it doesn't use fresh apples. It uses applesauce. Now it calls for sweetened applesauce, and would you believe it, I couldn't find sweetened applesauce anywhere in my grocery store. I could only find unsweetened applesauce. Now I'm sure it's probably sweet enough, but I want to make sure this pie turns out well, so I'm going to add a half cup of sugar to the recipe. Even though the recipe doesn't call for sugar, then that's just because my applesauce is unsweetened. You could use a sugar substitute if you wanted, or you could leave the sugar out, or you could use more or less depending on your preferences. I'm just taking a shot in the dark here and saying half a cup. All right, so we're gonna mix all ingredients in this pan, and then we're going to cook it on the stove. And then I have my eggs are separated. I have the yolks here and the whites are by my mixer. We're gonna beat the whites up into stiff peak? Stiffly beaten egg whites. We're gonna beat the egg whites into a stiff peak, and then we're gonna fold it into our mixture when it's done cooking. So we need 2 cups of applesauce, so let's measure that. God, that's almost the whole jar. Okay, I'm just going to use the rest of the jar. So I'm a little over 2 cups, but I don't want to waste food. Okay, so in the pot it goes. And let me grab a whisk. We're going to whisk in our eggs, or egg yolks, sugar if you're using. Okay. And flour. Now we want 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, and yes, I use bottled lemon juice because it makes life easier. And it was the lemon juice that really made me decide to add sugar to this because I just didn't want a sour pie. And it just says a few grains of salt, so I've got a salt shaker. I'm just gonna shake it. And again, the recipe honestly says to do this in a double boiler, but I'm really impatient. So I'm going to cook this over medium heat. Until it thickens up a little bit. And while it's cooking, I'm going to keep a close eye on it so it doesn't burn. And then we're going to get our egg whites beaten to a stiff peak. So let me get this on the stove. Okay, so I've got my pot right here, my stove and my mixer are right next to each other. So I'm just going to whisk this and watch it while it thickens up. I'm not sure. It's already thick because of the applesauce, but I guess when it gets thicker. And then I'm going to start beating my egg whites to stiff peaks. And then we are going to fold. I don't know if you can see this, but my egg whites are... this is awkward. They are stiff. So I'm just going to set those aside, or I guess leave them. Benefits of having a super tiny kitchen is that everything's like right next to each other, so I can multitask. And that's like the only benefit. Because it sure as hell is in space. But yeah, I'm still waiting for this to thicken up somewhat. I don't know how to tell when it's thickened. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be obvious. We'll see. Okay, update on the apple filling. It's bubbling now. I'm not sure how much thickening power that 1 tablespoon of flour has. I'm hoping this pie isn't soupy. I know that apples have a lot of pectin in them. So I'm thinking it's probably going to be pretty wise to refrigerate this pie after you bake it and after it's cooled completely, and give that pectin a chance to really gel up. because I just don't know how thick of 1 tablespoon of flour is going to make this. But we'll find out. That's why we try these recipes out. I think a little bit of vanilla in this, after we get it off the heat, I think a little bit of vanilla extract in this would be really good. Apples and vanilla go together really well. I'll leave a link above to one of my absolute favorite apple pie recipe. It's from a 1936 cookbook, and it is so incredibly good. If you make any apple pie, make that apple pie. It is so good. And use the vanilla extract. Oh, it's so good. I can't say enough good things about that apple pie. It's so good. I used to not like apple pie until I found that recipe, and now I love it. I love that recipe, and I'm hoping this is going to be similar to that. So it does look like it's getting a little bit thicker. It didn't give me any, the recipe doesn't say like how thick to get it, but it does appear to be getting somewhat thicker. So I'm just going to keep going. My cat Tully has decided to help out. He's monitoring me, making sure I don't screw this up. Tully, this is spitting apple everywhere. You're gonna get burned. Okay, so if you get this bubbling, just be aware that it spits hot apple at you, and that's kind of unpleasant. Just don't get burned. Okay, so I think this is as thick as I'm gonna get it. As you can see, it's pretty thick. It was bubbling a lot. I cooked it for maybe 8 minutes, but your time will vary. So this is as thick as I got it. It's definitely thicker than it was. I'm gonna let this cool down quite a bit before I fold in the egg whites. Like I said before, I don't want to do anything to risk having the egg whites deflate, and I don't know if the hot liquid will deflate them. So I'm just gonna let this cool down, and I'll see you guys when that is over. Okay, so for whatever reason, my camera or my microphone stopped recording. But here you'll see me folding in the egg whites, and that took a while. Again, I waited for that applesauce mixture to cool. I didn't know if it would deflate the egg whites if I fold them in while it's still hot, so I didn't take that chance. And then I'm pouring it into my frozen pie crust. I keep my pie crusts in the freezer in a metal tin. I just find I like the texture of the finished pie crust better that way after it's done baking, but you don't have to do it that way. That's just how I do it. And the recipe doesn't specify how long to bake this for, so I'm going to set it for 20 minutes and then just keep an eye on it. And then I will let you know how long mine stayed in the oven for, but your time might be a little bit different. All right, I'll see you when this is done.
Or what do you have here, Molly?
Daniel, I made an apple fluff pie. This is an old-fashioned pie, and
What's the difference?
this is made with applesauce. Yeah, it's made with applesauce.
Okay. I'm going to hold judgment till after I taste.
Oh, I'm sure it's good. It said to use sweetened applesauce. I actually could not find sweetened applesauce at the grocery store, so I added a half cup of sugar, and hopefully that was the right thing to do. All right, let's taste this. Wow.
It's good. It tastes like apple pie.
Yeah, this is really good.
Reminds me a lot of that other one you made.
Yeah, the apple pie recipe from 1936. I left a link to that above earlier. So this tastes like, obviously it tastes like apples. It's nice and sweet. And it has a really fluffy, I can see why they call it, oh good lord. I can see why they call it apple fluff pie, because the egg whites we folded into it gives it a nice fluffy texture. So I've never had an apple pie like this before, and it's really good. Dan's just pounding it.
It's not very good.
It's delicious. So it's plenty sweet. You don't have to add sugar if you can find sweetened applesauce. You can add a sugar substitute if you know how to bake with those. You can add more sugar or less sugar, but I think that this was sweet enough. And mine baked for about 25 minutes. It definitely puffed up when it was baking, and I kind of shook the pie pan a little bit and saw that it was set in the center, and I was like, okay, I think it's done. And then it's just been sitting out for several hours. So there we go.
Do you want to know what I think of it?
You want to high five me?
No.
Come on, don't leave me hanging. Yeah, this is a great pie. I'm just going to eat it out of the pan. Wow. Has a strong apple flavor. Really good. So use an applesauce you like. I wouldn't use one with a lot of preservatives. Just a nice
Crust
good.
is good.
You can make your own applesauce too. Yeah, and the crust. That's my favorite crust recipe, and I'll leave a link to that in the description box for you. Don't ruin your dinner, please.
No.
Okay, well there you go. So the pie's a hit, and apple fluff pie. Oh, this recipe comes from the Household Searchlight Recipe Book. This is from 1937. So a winning pie. Winning pie from 1937. It's really good. And what I like about it is it's like a pantry pie. You can get some of that. I'm not eating out of the tin like a hog.
You said you were going to, and I cut me a piece so I can be refined.
All right. Oh, this is BS. Okay. All right. So there you go. We're about to have dinner if Dan has any room left. And
I've got plenty of room.
I hope you guys try this recipe out. If you try this recipe out, please leave a comment below and let me know what you think of it. I think a little bit of vanilla extract in this would be really good.
It would be, but this is good.
Yeah, so leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. And I hope to hear from you guys. And I hope you have a good day. I'm trying to end this video and I don't know how.
Goodbye, everybody.
Have a good night.